What's up, guys? It is Saturday at about 3:10 p.m. I've been out teaching since 9 in the morning, and now I have about an hour to go home before I have to leave for my gig. I've noticed a lot of my subscribers are university students in music or high school students, or you might just be interested in what it's like to work as a musician in a big city. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you guys with me to my gig. So I have about an hour right now to go home, eat something, take a shower, and get dressed. Unless I end up short on time, in which case I'll probably just eat something and get dressed. All right, stay tuned. In case you guys are curious what I'm eating, before a gig I always like to fuel my body in the same way that jazz musicians have been doing for decades. The same way that all the greats did, Miles Davis and Charlie Parker, to name a couple. So I'm cooking up a nice big bowl of heroin. I'm just kidding. I'm just having some chicken with some broccoli. Nothing too fancy. Alright guys, as you can see I'm all dressed. I got everything I need for the gig. Believe it or not, this is actually my only trip that I'm going to make to my car. I have my amp and everything I need besides what I have here, my Canton guitar on my back. And the reason I do that is because I don't have my own parking spot, and a lot of times I end up having to park kind of far away, and I'm not about to be lugging all this gear, 2 or 3 blocks every time I have a gig, because that would be ridiculous. So what I do is I have a Roland Cube 80X amp that I keep in my car, and I only ever take it out when I have a gig, and then I keep it in my trunk year-round. And some of you might be thinking, damn, you keep an amp in your trunk year-round. It's a pretty cheap amp, Roland Cube. I've driven it across the country twice through all sorts of potholes, and it's been in the cold of Chicago winters and summers for a year and a half now, and the thing still sounds amazing. I've dropped it on the concrete, still didn't break. That amp is a tank. Honestly, I'm not paid by Roland or anything. I am a featured artist on the Canton Custom Guitars website, but if anyone from Roland is watching this, hit me up. I would love to be sponsored. Anyway, I'm at my car here, so I'm gonna use my phone as a GPS to find this gig, and I'll switch to my other camera, probably do a voiceover, show you some of the trip, talk about a few things along the way, and then we will set up for the gig. I've got about an hour drive out into the suburbs now, so I'm just going to show you guys some clips from the drive. Unfortunately, it was raining, but nothing I can do about that, so I'm just going to show you guys some clips while I drive, and I'll use the time to talk about this type of work a little bit, and some of my thoughts on it, and advice and whatnot, things you might want to keep in mind if you want to be doing this type of work someday. So first of all, I'll just tell you a little bit about what I'm going to be doing. This is a duo jazz gig, so I'm just playing, it's just me and a bass player. We've got 3 hours to fill from 7 to 10, probably with, a break in there at some point. But we have 3 hours to fill, and it's basically a dinner gig. People are going to be eating, and we're just going to be creating the atmosphere. So we're not like on a big stage or anything. It's just a background music gig. As far as the pay, I'm not going to tell you guys exactly what I'm making for this one, but in general, for this type of thing, you're looking at roughly $200 per musician, give or take, depending on the client and whoever's doing the negotiation and whatnot. But yeah, roughly $200 per musician, at least in the Chicago area. I don't know what it's like in other areas of the country. Now, as far as how this gig was booked, neither I or the bass player actually know anybody at the venue. We neither of us have the connection. It's a third party connection. So someone else booked the gig, did all the negotiations of how much we charge, and will collect the money from the venue and will pay us. So our job is just to show up and play. We don't have to talk about money or anything. We just show up, we play, and we leave, which I find to be kind of nice, not to have to worry about collecting money or anything, knowing that it's guaranteed by this third party. Okay, you can see I've made it to the highway here, and I just want to talk a little bit about how to get work like this in the first place. So I moved to Chicago about a year and a half ago, and I didn't have a single connection. I didn't know a single musician. I started from absolute zero. And the two things that I did that I had success with were I would go out to jam sessions a few nights a week. We're very lucky in Chicago that pretty much any night of the week you can go out and find a great jazz jam session with some really, really professional players to play with. So I would go out just by myself and meet people a few nights a week. And, after a few months, I started getting a gig here and there from meeting people and making friends doing that. But, it was slow. Like I did that for a few months with not a single gig. And the other thing I did was I would send out emails to band leaders with a demo. I had some recordings of myself that I was sending out. So you've got to have something you can send people where they can hear a good representation of your playing. It's super important. So I probably sent out probably like over 100 emails throughout the course of those like first 6 months with demos of myself to various band leaders and people in the area. And like 99% of them either are going to write you back and say, hey, you sound great, but we don't need anyone right now, or they're just not going to respond at all. And every now and then someone might give you another lead, like, hey, this guy might need someone. And my advice is to follow up on every single one of those, because even if after 6 months not a single one has panned out, you haven't gotten a single gig from them, it could be that final one that gives you a connection that really gets you a lot of work. And that was exactly the case with this one. It was maybe 6 months or a little more with very, very little connections that I made. Maybe, one or two, a gig here and there. But this connection I almost didn't even follow up on because I was just so used to it not working out. But I ended up following up on it, and I've made tons of friends because of it. I've gotten lots of work in the past year. I've made, like probably a couple extra $1,000 worth of gigs. So anyway, don't get lazy. Follow up on every single lead you possibly can, because you never know which one is going to work out. Now, once you have the gig, you've absolutely got to show up early. In my opinion, if you're not early, you're late. Because when you're driving like a far distance, especially like, here I have an hour to drive to the venue, and a lot of the time it's a new venue, so like I've never been there before. You've got to save yourself time to get lost or whatever, make a wrong turn, take the wrong exit, or a lot of times there's slowdowns, especially like in this case, since it's raining. I knew that people would be driving slow. I would have to drive slow, and it's likely that there are going to be accidents along the way, which slows down traffic quite a bit, like is the case right here. So hopefully these people are okay. I've just passed an accident back a ways. I don't know if you guys saw it. I didn't mention it, but you can see that one that we just passed. Um, so all these things slow down traffic. I built in an extra half hour or so earlier because of the rain in this particular one. But basically, I showed up. I showed up at the gig probably like an hour before we started playing, and the bass player did too. Even if you could hypothetically show up 10 minutes before the gig starts, no matter what, and always be there um, on time, it would, in my opinion, still be better to show up a lot earlier for the sole reason that whoever you're working for, like the band leader, is going to be put at ease just by the fact that you're there and they don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to show up. So, yeah, bottom line, be as early as you can to set everybody else at ease and to make sure you're there on time no matter what happens. And the last thing I want to mention is you've got to have all your gear ready to go. You can't show up and not have a pick or, forget your strap or your amp is broken or whatever. If you have to have a checklist, I think that's a great idea. You've got to have all your gear in working condition. Maybe an extra cable, that's a great idea. Even like, let's say like the bass player's cable doesn't work, it's great to have an extra one ready to go to lend out to someone else who needs it. Basically, I heard the advice, you've got to make it inconvenient for the band leader to not hire you. And I think that's great advice. So whatever you can do to make things easier on everybody around you, do that. Okay, so here we are driving through the golf course. I had to put my camera down for a second because I had to go through the security gate and I didn't want them asking me why I'm trying to film them. So I'm now inside the country club and I'm going to park and unload all my gear. Unfortunately, I don't have the ability to film while I'm carrying stuff, but you can imagine me carrying my amp and stuff and whatnot into the building. All right, guys, in case you're curious, play a little game. Which car at the country club belongs to the musician? Yep, there it is. 2007 Honda Civic. Yep. I wish it was the other way around, but it's not. All right, everybody say hi to Sean. This shot's kind of dark, but yep, Sean's warming up on the bass. And here's the room we're playing to. And here's me. I don't know if the lighting is good enough to see this. All right, so the videos I was taking are turning out pretty dark, so I just took a couple photos. This first one is the room as we saw it while we were playing, and here is Sean getting set up. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. All right, so everybody was talking over my playing, so I might as well join in, and I'll say a few things about musically what a gig like this entails. The first thing I want to say is that obviously we got to fill 3 hours, so if you are a music student and you don't know enough standards that you can call tunes for 3 hours and play the melody, melody, harmony, rhythm, everything is up to you for 3 hours. You got to learn more tunes. That's something that I really neglected when I was in school. So learn from my mistakes. I was learning tons and tons of tunes for the year after I moved to Chicago, just so I could work. And also just going to jam sessions, you're going to have to know lots of tunes. So yeah, basically learn lots of tunes is pretty much my advice here. And here we are after the gig. I just asked someone to take a picture of us. All right, guys, it is close to 10 o'clock. I'm all packed up, got my amp in my car and all my gear, and I've got about an hour drive back into the city. The gig went pretty well overall, except for last time they gave us sandwiches, and this time all I got was this iced tea. So, you win some, you lose some. The last step to a successful gig is to fill up your gas before you get back into the city. It's way cheaper out here. In the city, it's way more expensive, so always fill my gas tank up before I get back out in the suburbs. Alright guys, the drive home was pretty uneventful. It's a little after 11 and I'm back home. Please let me know in the comments if you like this type of video. I could definitely do more of them showing you different aspects of my life. It's the first time I've ever thought of making a video that wasn't just like me teaching you guys skills. So I thought it'd be fun, maybe interesting for people to see. Anyway, let me know what you think of it, or if you have any ideas for other videos, types of stuff you want to see. I am going to get changed out of this suit. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.